Hi there, friends. How are you? This is Jim the Keys bartender coming to you from Key Largo. Uh, we're going to talk about female dick pics on Instagram, but right now I'm going to do a little Key Largo or Keys news. It's a cool day. It's going to be nice. No, actually, a cool morning. It's going to be turning out to a beautiful day, almost 80 degrees. Beautiful day to be here. A lot of people fishing out on the water. There's not a lot of wind out there. Water's like glass. Perfect day to be down here to enjoy the sun. Remember to use the sunscreen. I never really understood that thing when I see people come down here. They get all, first day or two, I got to get some color. Well, they get color. They look like lobster red when they come and leave here. They leave with sun poisoning. You've seen it. Everyone's seen it. Bad sunburn. They make fun of it. It doesn't feel very good. Okay, last week we told you about a horrible accident. I'm going to do a little update on it. And I don't mean to be a downer, but it pays to be aware. So far, it is January 25th, and on the highways here, Route 1 and 905 in the Keys, we have 8 deaths, maybe more, but there's a minimum of 8 deaths. And with this track, we'll be close to 100. On the high, 100 people dead on the highway down here. If it keeps up, let's say we get another one, end up with 9, we definitely would be. But there's slow season, so when there's less people here, there's less deaths. So hopefully, people just start being a little more aware. But last week there was a motorcycle. I got a little additional information on it. They were both 2 motorcycles heading south on Route 1, approaching speeds of 140 miles per hour. When they were going southbound, a car was making a turn into the southbound lane, an SUV. One of the motorcycles struck it so hard that it rolled the SUV. Yes, a motorcycle rolled an SUV, caught on fire. People on site there tried to get people out of the vehicles and things like that, but the fire they couldn't get into it. And eventually, when they had the fire out, they found 3 people in the vehicle, but they couldn't find the motorcyclist. And upon further search, they found that the motorcyclist, was the person in the back seat. So he hit so hard, he went into the rear passenger compartment of the SUV and died. And there's more information we'll find out later about the person they were with, but there's rumors that some horrible things happened afterwards and they were Keys residents. A lot of people down here have a tendency to say things about Miami drivers and things like that. But given the opportunity, people who live here can make the wrong decisions. So Saturday, I was up in Miami at a car dealership, and I purchased a used vehicle. I got a really good deal on a Ford Passat, and I was driving back in separate vehicles. Abby was following me in her car, and I'm driving a new one. And as we go through a overseas highway, and on a Saturday in season, if you're coming down here, we suggest you either leave early to come into the Keys or arrive late. But and probably early is probably better. If you can get here before 9 o'clock, you'd be doing pretty good. But after 9 a.m. it starts building up. So we're heading in around 3 o'clock, and it was approximately 10 after 3. I'm at mile marker 106 heading south, and it had to be 15 seconds, 20 seconds before a woman got hit on the highway. She survived. I'm going to say that again so it's not a downer. But when I pull up on the right lane, everything starts slowing down. People are jumping out of their cars. There are already 12 cars on the side of the road. Three people are on the woman. 4 or 5 people are directing traffic, and that's the nice thing about here. The bad thing was the traffic and the woman getting hit. We're going to get additional information, but it was in the southbound lane. She's laying on the road, about a foot in from the bike path into the road, and that was very unfortunate. But they waved me through, or I would have stopped. But it was nice to see everyone pitching in there, and there was a certain amount of people that you need to do that before the police arrive, and that's a horrible thing. I've been on the scenes of accidents before, and when you're the first person there, you got to really be sharp, to get people organized, calling 911 and that. But on that busy highway, there was no lack of people that were willing to help, and it turned out the woman survived, and I don't know what type of condition she was in, but she did not pass away. But unfortunately, yesterday at mile marker 104, someone did die, and that's Sunday, and this happened in the afternoon around 6 o'clock. And it's a grim reminder when you see the highway back up. It was at 104, so there's no alternate getting out of the Keys. They have a little, if you're going northbound, they have a neighborhood. They were able to route some people through. So they were alternating traffic back and forth. But you can see it getting backed up. If it was in an area that was no throughway, a side street going through, it would have backed all the way back to Almirada, because they have to alternate traffic through the southbound lanes, or one of the lanes, getting people the traffic to move. Because in the case of death on the highway here in Key Largo, there's the coroner, or the medical examiner, is in Key West, and when someone dies, they have to send a coroner up from Key West. So you're talking about a mile marker 0 going up to mile marker 104. So that doesn't clear up for quite a few hours. And once you know that, you see all the vehicles waiting. I think people have a tendency to say, what's causing this? When you're stuck in a traffic jam, you get all I get self-absorbed, that you have some place to go, you want to get out of there, you don't want to be stuck in a traffic jam. But once you realize someone died, it should change your perspective. Yeah, you're inconvenienced right now, but someone's dead. And I hope people realize, and it is, I've been on a bike when I got hit from someone who saw me, and it was at a low speed, so I didn't even get injured. I got a little scrape on my leg, and my bike was the frame was bent and all that from being hit by a truck. But it reminds you, every time you see that, it is very precarious. We got a highway, and much like almost anywhere else, but for some reason, when people come down here, they're either in a hurry to go all the way down to Key West or get back to the airport. There's a lot of different ways. There's so many people that use bikes down here, bicycles. So you got the bike path and the side bike paths, and then you have the divided highway with a median strip in it that's with very few lights. The traffic signals, there's a school crossing at 106. At 101.6, there's a traffic signal. Right around 99.5, there's a pedestrian crossing with a light, which has very different things going, and then a traffic signal less than a quarter mile south, and then you have to go all the way into Tavernier, about 10 miles to get the next light. Then there's another traffic school crossing light a couple miles south. Maybe say 2 miles south. And then there's a whole bunch of no traffic signals until you get down to Layton. About 30 miles. 30 miles, no traffic signal. And then you got Marathon, there's a bunch of traffic signals. But if you heard me say that, there was about 4 or 5 traffic signals in 30 miles on this highway, with hundreds of entrances into the highway, and bike riders and walkers and people crossing the street. Now, you could all well and good, you have a school crossing light at 106, but is someone going to walk 2 miles, or if let's say they're crossing from 108 or 107 and or 105, they're not going to go all the way up to 106 to make that safe crossing. And when they're crossing on the weekends, especially on a Saturday, Sunday, with high traffic volumes, they're waiting, and then you're estimating. We've all done this, where you're looking down the road, you see a car approaching, and you're assuming they're going 45, 50 miles an hour. And you got a closure rate, a standard closure rate of saying that car will take a couple seconds to get here. Right? And I'll have a couple seconds to get across this part of the highway. Well, if that person's going 90 miles an hour, and when you estimated it was going to take 4 seconds, it could take 2 seconds. And that closure rate, twice the speed. Not too many people they're used to crossing the road in cities and things like that. Not a high rate of speed. So their estimations are way off sometimes. And there's people not paying attention. And there's people, if they're crossing, sometimes they see there's 2 lanes up in the upper Keys. There's, when you're going across the highway, you got to look at the bike path, north, south. And there's a bike path on the other side. Sometimes people are coming across, and there's pedestrians. Now you got the other road. You got maybe traffic on the other side of a cross street coming across, right? And you got people in the southbound lane that may be making a left turn into the northbound lane. So you have a lot of things going on. And if, depending on the order of when you're doing it, if you look right, there's 2, 3, 4 places to look north, and 1, 2, 3, 4 places to look south. And by the time you're done, you make your turn. Well, someone already could be, if they're coming down faster or running across the street, you miss that. There's a lot of things going on, especially when you get near these big bars that are on the water, like the Big Chill. You got a couple people in there. If there are a couple hundred people there, and when there's a big event, there could be 500 people, and there are a lot of people crossing the road and stuff. When there's a lot of people crossing the road, you should be slowing down. You should be slowing down than the posted speed. Forget about even speeding. So sometimes you even have cars parked in the middle of the highway on the median strip. And you have people crossing, and you got vehicles, and you got people coming from in between cars and things like that. You can't see a pedestrian coming out. You think you're smooth sailing. You look down, change the radio station, bam. Someone just walked in front of you. Right? How much is it worth not to run someone over? How much hit someone? How much does it change your life? How much do you feel after most people are affected negatively by that? Only the psychotics would not be a sociopath would not be affected by that and just say, oh, it's the person's fault. Even if it was the person's fault. Even if it was the person's fault, you still feel like shit. So how much is it worth to you? Is it worth 2 hours out of your trip to slow down? It's not really 2 hours if you slow down. How much time are you going to save? Going 10 miles an hour faster. 30 minutes? The rest of your life you're going to be thinking about that. Sorry for the downer, stuff like that, but you got to deal with this when you're in the Keys. There's so many deaths on the highway considering the 70,000 people that live down here. I used to, in Philadelphia, where this is Route 1, and I'm pointing up to less than 300 yards up the road is Route 1. I lived about the same distance from it up in Philadelphia. No, and actually twice the distance from it. And there was some really bad intersections there. And I used to say, wow, this is, we're at the worst intersection. Well, it was the worst intersection because we're on Route 1 because it's in the middle of a major city. And every day, tens of thousands of vehicles making a turn of a 12-lane highway. A 12-lane highway, not a 4-lane highway. I would wager to guess down here, for the amount of traffic that comes down here, that we would be higher. Our death rate would be higher than the 12-lane highway up in Philadelphia. But that's all I have to say about that today. To move on from that, recently, my wife was showing me a picture of a young lady who she's in her late 20s. Oh, let me pause this for a second. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that interruption. But when the wife's calling, you gotta answer, right? What are you going to do other than pick up and say, hey, listen, hon, I was doing a podcast. It's very important. Well, that's why I record now, because if it's live, I found that when it's live, I don't, first of all, unless I schedule live shows and people know it's coming up, it's kind of crazy to do that. But I'm back. Female dick pics on Instagram. So last week, and one other thing, it's going to be great. So, young woman, she was in charge of a after-school program in a local school here, and looking after aftercare children from preschool to their early, I guess 11, 12 years old, and I understand that on Instagram, and I've seen pictures of scantily clad women showing various parts of their body. But there was a young woman who lives down here, and she's posting on Instagram, so she's not shy. She had a sheer micro bikini on. And my wife was showing me, she goes, oh, why are you showing me these pictures? Because I've seen nude pictures on Instagram. I'm not a prude. I understand that. And I'm not shocked by it. It's just one of the, it's just one of the things. And the caption said, feeling sexy. And they're posting on Instagram, so they're not shy about it, obviously, so they wouldn't have a problem with me talking about it. And I didn't say who the person was. But they're posting it here, locally. It was not like one of these things where they have a bunch of followers from a different area. They have they said feeling sexy. And it's an attractive girl. And she may have recently had a child. And no big deal. No little nip thing. And then, but Abby chose the girls that Abby works at the salon. They zoomed in and you could see her vagina. I'm whispering because my daughter's just waking up. But yeah, you can clearly see it right there. Brazilian wax or whatever stuff. And I thought, wow, what an interesting thing to post when you're involved in childcare. Now, I'm not a prude. Once again, I'm not a prude, but I have to think about it like the whole philosophical thing about what, we shouldn't make a big deal about nudity. But when it's sexualized, I didn't know what it felt, but I thought in my head, I go, well, this could be a revenge picture, right? And a boyfriend posting it. How people, how hard is it to take pictures and send, people do it all the time. They send pictures to another person. They don't have to go and take boudoir photos anymore. Before there was, at the advent of electronic photos. What do you call it? Digital photos. God, I was drawing a blank. Digital photos. There was a time when people used to get pictures. They used to get them professionally done, and the great thing about it wasn't disseminated if the photographer didn't keep the negatives. You know what I mean? But take pictures for a person they care about and distribute them. I had a friend in college who used to take pictures of his girlfriends in certain intimate poses, and they weren't. They were kind of like the hustler poses, not the Playboy poses. And the older people, everyone's seen. They just don't realize my reference: hustler versus Playboy. Playboy is a nude where you're not spread. They're not zooming in on the vagina or anything like that. A Playboy photo is you got the whole body nude and stuff like that. That's it. Not too in depth. No pun intended. And I think, wow, this is a conundrum, because recently a friend of mine told me, he said there was a local deputy down here who was having, I don't know if it was down here, I don't know what they were making a reference, but it was a sheriff's deputy. I think she had some work done on her. When I say had some work done, it wasn't on her house. It was more on her, I guess, if you're going to refer to the body, it was more of, she got new windows put in, or new lights, high beams, I guess, put in. And they warned her, said, please don't post pictures of yourself anymore. And they kept on posting, because they have a morals thing. It's funny, because the guys can watch as much as they want, right? But without the girls posting the pictures, it takes two to tango. So they don't have a problem with the guys looking at it. They just have a problem with the people posting it. So you have your manufacturers and your producers and your consumers. It's like arresting a prostitute, not to John. But I rethought, after a while, I said, realize, the young girl, that's the way she is, right? Young woman, I know, call her girl. It's funny, she's, late 20s, early 30s. That's the way I view it. So I call them a girl if they're young enough to be my daughter. That's the way I view them. Weird thing. That's why I've always enjoyed women closer to my age. I've dated a couple younger ones when I was separated and stuff like that, but I don't think I ever dated anybody young enough. Nope, I haven't. Young enough to be my daughter. I think I went 15 years younger. That was it. The youngest I went. And that's when I was in my 40s. So this person was in their, late 20s. Oh, it was 29, 30. So I was 44. So we're there. I'm going to view that. Now I'm trying not to be a hypocrite. I shouldn't distinguish between if someone's posting it and someone's looking at it. Because if no one was looking at it, they wouldn't be posting it. Didn't get any likes, right? Do you get me? Do you feel me? Not in a way that the person that's consuming wants to feel the person that's producing. I'm talking about, do you understand what I'm saying? Without the consumer, the person that's the audience, there would be none of that. I mean, they would try. I mean, I don't think they would try. It's like the Bernie Sanders memes, right? At the inauguration, you got Bernie in a parka with his mittens, cross sitting in his folding chair. And it's everywhere. People are consuming it. Eventually, and I think we're approached it already, it's less than a week out, right? It's less than a week. And everybody's posting pictures. I haven't posted anything. It just was overused. It was like the ice bucket challenge. People just get used to it. But, when it comes to sex sells, right? If there's no consumers, let's say if there was no people, no likes and stuff like that, if everyone was just liking and watching cute animal pics, and there was as much a rush to getting, let's say if you're a girl and you want to get guys attracted to you and you have a beautiful lab, and they posted the picture of the beautiful lab and they got 500 likes and hearts and said, oh boy, that's a beautiful dog, that must be a really great girl that owns that dog, right? They would do that because there would be very little where you get. Every so often you get the catfishing ones where people like you and it's a very attractive woman. There's a one from Miami, really pretty face, but it looks like she was somewhat enhanced, right? Somewhat enhanced. I'm not saying I'm immune. I am not immune to it, but the girl she's a girl, so she's so much younger and stuff like that. So I'm just saying, I'm not going to do creepy, right? You can appreciate and not consume. It's like you have high cholesterol and there's a huge burger at the restaurant you're going. You got that burger with bacon, cheese, scrambled egg on top, some kind of sauce, and it's a double stack. And you say, well, I would love to have some of that, but I can't because of my cholesterol. So you want to keep in control of your cholesterol. And some people say, well, Jim, you probably don't even have a chance to order that burger. That burger's not for you. Well, there's that too. But you shouldn't. Should you search out cravings? Should you actually search out cravings? Right? I mean, is it good for you? Even though you can't have it? I mean, if you have your mind and all that stuff, you might be able to let your imaginations go wild. But sometimes people just take it too far, and it's best to put it in perspective. Put it in perspective, right? So I'm not telling you not to like a picture of a beautiful woman that posts pictures and stuff like that, but what happens is people do things in order to attract attention, and the more controversial the better, and they get the likes, and it's usually young women do it using attractive young women use their bodies, and then other people use their other talents. If they remember those years ago on the online, they post pictures of people doing amazing sports feats, throwing a basketball off the roof through a hoop, throwing a frisbee 400 yards, and the dog catching it, whatever, or beer pong thing from across the room. They do it made me do it like 500 times to get that picture. So, just because someone is screaming for attention doesn't mean you have to give it. It's a shame that, and then eventually, when you're like that, you're going to eventually fall out of favor with people because, just not the thing that lasts forever, and people eventually get tired of it. The flavors of the day. And last, this is more news, but kind of happy news, not happy news, not like a big thing. We've had, I told you last week, 2 weeks ago, there was two sisters getting arrested in Key West, white girls. Don't you know, within another week, I don't know, I think there was a twins convention down in Key West. There had to be. Because 2 weeks ago, there were two white girls, And about a week and a half ago, there were two Latinas. And they were sisters, born on the same day with the same last name. And they were fraternal. I was just, I always kind of go through it to find someone interesting, to see what happened. And then I search the story. Kind of newsy. Well, I told you about the guy that's tried to break into the gas station who introduced himself as David, and then David Christ. And then he settled on Jesus Christ. Well, this week in Key West, we have listed on the Monroe County arrest blotter. It was inmate dummy. I think 51 years old. Inmate dummy. And that's what a guy says, what's your name? Dummy. Probably he kept on calling himself Dummy, so that's how he introduced himself. And I thought, that sounds like someone, and you could tell that someone who's doing a post, the Monroe County blog, this past 4 days, they didn't put the arrest locations in. There was no arrest locations, but you could tell they were arrested by Key West sheriff's deputies or Marathon or this. And then as you go back a little further, arrest locations show up. So that's in season. There's going to be a lot of interesting ones like that. There's going to be great stories that we're going to have. I hate to say it, it's going to happen. If it's going to happen, it might as well happen here, and I might as well use it, because you have to do that. What were they thinking? Now I can understand that. I recently had. I'm not going to say where this happened, but I'm going to tell you what happened. I'm going to tell it in a third-person narrative. A guy came in and was drinking, and he must have been drinking someplace else, and he was fine when he showed up, and after having a couple drinks, he turned out to be intoxicated. Now, I'm telling this in third person, but I saw it in the first person. Now, the bartender was telling the person that the gentleman who was in his late 20s, early 30s, that he can't have another drink because he's already intoxicated. But you can have a glass of water. He goes, "You're throwing me out, aren't you?" And I said, "I'm not throwing you out." So he had to-go food. He's sitting there. And, I said, "Aye." But he's falling down. I'm picking him up. And eventually he asks for another drink. And the bartender looks over. And he's gone. Now, the bartender knew he didn't drive. But he was concerned he shouldn't be walking, because he could barely sit. And then he noticed that people around him were looking on the floor. And lo and behold, when the bartender walked around the bar, he found the person like a turtle on his back, rocking back and forth, not finding, saying he doesn't need help. And at that point, when he came to pick him up, he did not ask for a shot. I have a hard time keeping it in third person, don't I? It's a funny thing. So, said bartender, with a coworker, carries the person out to his vehicle, the bartender's vehicle, and decides to take him home. He knows the guy lives a block away. And he knows pretty much the street. And it was while driving down the street, he says to the intoxicated person, "I'll make a right here, right?" The guy goes, "No, make a left." I said, "Are you sure you're supposed to make a right?" He said, "I'm supposed to make a right." Man, I suck at this. "No, make a left." And then he says, "Oh, you live on this street?" He goes, "No, this is the wrong direction." And the bartender says, "Okay." He goes, I'm sorry, no problem." Make a U-turn, takes him. The bartender takes him to his house on the right street, opens the door, tries to get the guy out of the car. He starts pushing him away, and he starts falling face down on the ground. He does not fall all the way down to the ground. The bartender catches him. He's not a small guy, but the bartender catches him, picks him up, He's given us some help, right? And the bartender walks him to the menagerie of boats to his front door. And the bartender says, "You're going to have to open that front door." He goes, "Oh, no problem." The door was unlocked. And he goes in, and the bartender waits, expects to hear crashing. But he didn't hear any crashing. Waited a couple minutes. Either person stumbled around. And then bartender yells in and says, "All right, where are you?" "I'm on the couch." "There you go." And the bartender leaves. That's the kind of stories you get from the Keys Bartender Show. Well, I'd like to thank you for listening. If you are a listener, please leave us a review. Share us with your friends. If you're a potential sponsor, please contact us at jim@keysbartender.com. If you're a listener, we'd love to hear from you too. Send us an email at jim@keysbartender.com. I'll be back tomorrow. Take care. Thank you.